Professor, you will be the last one for this afternoon.
Thank you. Again, indeed apologize to all of you. It's not good to leave a session, but for sure I'll be here tomorrow morning. The meeting which I'm going to chair was planned a long time ago. I had another one in the morning which I had the power to postpone till I did it. But also leaving without saying anything, I'm sure you all call Keraso, but I fondly call her Beatrice, would not be very much happy. Beatrice, initially, as the colonel here was saying, I was also, what is the name of that general colonel? Yeah, I was the general bushfire to Beatrice. But when we interacted, he knew I'm not a monster, and I'm not someone who cannot talk. And I'm sure when we met in Kampala, in Accord, he was even asking, who brought him here? Forgetting that I'm a member of the board of trustees of Accord of Uganda and a founder of NGO in Uganda. So to him, there was a big contradiction between the general bushfire and this person who was with. But Beatrice, let me also join others. We've done a lot for our East African community. And I said it to you privately, let me say it publicly. That as much as we bash you, as much as we criticize you, as much as we disagree with you, it does not mean you have not done something for this region. And actually, you have done it more creatively. And this is why I think it is time for heads of state to change the title after your departure. Is it this month? Next week. To Deputy Secretary General, Political Affairs. I believe, and I told you in Nairobi, had you pursued the political federation as it was thought by those who appointed you, you would have left your post as a very frustrated person. But leave as a proud person because you went beyond what they thought, and today we are here. Darwin here is a military officer, very proud of being East African. Beatrice, thank you very much as we differ in many other things, but I have respect. So this is why I was eager to say, so that publicly and this is why I was one of the first to buy your book. Read it. Yeah. And I told her that I always respect anything put in book. One of my good friends, not because we share, I agree with whatever he writes, but I praise him and I read him, is pious himself. At least when his time comes to depart, he will have left a wealth of information. And that is very, very unfortunate about Marine. He never left us his memoirs. Marine Nyerere has gone with all his experience to Almighty God. And this is why I'm prodding other presidents to put down their memoirs. As much as we may hate them, as much as we may not agree with them, but for the next and future generations to know. And this brings me to another issue I want to talk on. This morning when I was picking books from our study room, my dearest wife Amina was saying, again, you are bad behavior. I've been in the last 5 years in a project about integration, which has taken me every year to the University of West Indies, either St. Augustine campus or Mona in Jamaica, and recently, 2 months ago, I was in Barbados, the Cape Hilton. And I went to a very interesting institute. And here I brought a very interesting book. This is the archives, the West Indies Federal Archives Center at Cape Hill campus in Bridgetown. They had a federation which was short-lived, 4 years. 4 years. 4 years. But they have documented everything, including the book known as Negotiating the Federation. Look at this. We don't have an archive of the former East African community. And I was able to get a treaty, the 1967 treaty, to one of the EAC officials, whom I'm always proud to say he's my student, because he's intelligent and he's doing very well, Dr. John Ruhangisa. And I don't know how many of us have the EA treaty, the East African Treaty of 1967. John brought me 2 copies. We share a name, and this is why I'm fond of him, perhaps. Although, no doubt, he excels in whatever he does. They have everything. And it was humbling when I met Professor Clive Thomas, of whom Barek knows. Professor Clive Thomas. He says, who are you? I thought, do I look? So, you look Caribbean, but your accent shows for sure you're not from this place. So indeed, yeah, you came 500 years from the continent, and they have come 500 years after you left the continent, so our accent is different. But when you knew I was from Tanzania, we had a very interesting talk. One, we need now in our dialogue to know more about the CARICOM. And here I have a few books which I would recommend for you to read. We are dialoguing, and a dialogue, which means you go to, you read, you expand your horizon. And this is why, Gilbert, thank you, I'm meeting for the first time, but I've read you many times online. After my almost 10 years stay in the Federal Republic of Germany, I was not returning to Tanzania. I was coming to weeks. But after arriving here, my friends convinced me to remain in Tanzania, and I'm happy I remained. And one of my fears, which proved me wrong, we are worried about our kids. Born in Europe, studied school in Europe, will they cope in Tanzania? And mind you, that is from someone who is enlightened. But the kids prove us wrong in 1 week. They were eating ugali, and they were walking bare feet. So our fear collapsed, and here we are, and I'm happy I am here. But one of the books which is quite interesting, and I would recommend we read, if we have not read it, is The Caribbean Community in Transition, Functional Cooperation as a Catalyst for Change. Yes. Another one. And I'm happy Amina is an academic, so she's not, she doesn't complain that I don't buy her perfume. Yeah.
I was thinking that if you have remarks that don't have to return to the session of today, you can make them when they're back.
They're coming. I'm coming. I'm just giving you. Yeah. The second one is the history of political history of CARICOM. And this book of the political history of CARICOM is very important. Very important in the sense that it rhymes with what we are discussing today. It rhymes with what we are discussing today. Kitui, niheshimu kidogo. Tafadhali niheshimu kidogo. Niheshimu kidogo. Kesho tunafanya mambo mengine. Heshima ni hii. Yeah, I'm coming to the point.
Order, you are protected. You are protected.
Tafadhali sana, huwa sikosei watu wa adabu wazima, lakini ukinifikisha hapo hata ngumi tutapigana. The other one, very slowly. The other one is the quest for regional integration in the 20th century. This is by our ambassador in Ethiopia, Biswalo. And this book is very good because it touches on the question of sovereignty. I may not agree with what Biswalo says, but Biswalo has a whole chapter on sovereignty or hypocrisy. I know Kitu, you read a lot, but I'm not sure whether Honorable Sam Kutesa, my most senior brother-in-law, may have known the book. If he has known, I apologize. So let me come to what I wanted to say, very briefly. When preparing for this discussion, there was a very important speech by Mwalimu which I read. This is a speech which he made in 15th of July 1965. Tanzania unjustly accused, which I wouldn't read, but I would advise you to read. Very, very humble. And one of these, Mwalimu says, it seems that there is nothing we can do in Tanzania, however reasonable and however logical, without being accused of breaking up East African unity. Uganda can ask for the dissolution of the East African University, and they will hear the most muted mention of this fact in East Africa. Kenya can unilaterally reverse a decision of the Common Sense Authority, and there will be no mention of this anywhere. I want to take this opportunity to state Tanzania's position. We are for the federation now, as we have always stood for federation. 1965, Mwalimu. Another very interesting speech. The pictures of Mwalimu have now been produced. There is one book now known as Freedom, Non-Alignment, and South-South Cooperation, Speeches of Mwalimu. And one very interesting speech of Mwalimu, uncharacteristic of Mwalimu, is an obituary of the East African community. Because people are hungry, I wouldn't want to bother you, and some are already pissed off. But in this obituary, one thing which Mwalimu states is what we are saying today. He says, there is no option for not cooperating. So he says, as much as now we are consigning this EAC in the annals of history, he says now, and I'll read. So, we in East Africa can now plan out our future together. As we do so, we have to recognize the changes which have taken place since 1977 and which prevent the revival of the East African community in its old forms. And one of the things which Mwalimu is discussing here is the power for negotiations if we are united. The second one which Mwalimu talks here is the need for an East African industrial policy. And this speech, this obituary by Mwalimu was in 1984. No option. Another thing Mwalimu says here is infrastructure. I don't want to bother you much with that, but it's something which we can read and ask for. Now, one, I'm very happy that we have a dialogue. And I would wish this dialogue in the future to be expanded, to have more people. Those who are ready for federation or political association, those who are lukewarm, and those who are cold. Why do I say so? Don't close debates. Let us continue to dialogue. Those who debate and dialogue will never work. And don't underestimate the power of skeptics when they're in large numbers. Don't underestimate the power of skeptics when they are in large numbers. And the only way to take skeptics to your position is to engage them in a dialogue. On sovereignty, very briefly, we are always looking at sovereignty negatively. Let us also look at sovereignty positively. And if we look at sovereignty positively, we will no longer talk about ceding, Gilbert. We will talk about pulling. Unfortunately, we are seeing sovereignty negatively, and this is why the argument is ceding. If we look at sovereignty positively, the issue will be pulling this sovereignty. And this is a big issue here, and Balebo is here, and Tanzanians are here. Here, Zanzibar. There's a big section in Zanzibar now. They're saying we no longer want a union by constitution. We want now a treaty where now Zanzibar will regain its sovereignty. So it's an issue which we should not fear, but we should not fail to grapple with it, but positively. The issue of EAC, COMESA, and SADC. Kitui gave a very good example of the football team where Ugandans were, cheering Kenyans. I have noticed in many interactions with my fellow East Africans, East Africans think Tanzania ends at Ruvuma and Tunduma. No. By providence of God, we are the only East African country which shares borders with many countries than any other East African country. And in all of these borders, ethnicities transcend. On Monday, we had a delegation from Zambia visiting our university. And there was one girl who was talking Kiswahili very fluently from Zambia. I asked her, where did you learn Kiswahili? She told me, don't forget I am a Nyamwanga from Zambia, but I have learned Nyamwangas in relatives in Tanzania, including the Chadema member of parliament. So I go to Tanzania. What do I want to say? Mozambique, Zambia, Malawi, Congo, to most Tanzanians is as important as it is Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi. Which means we need to find a way. I'm sure, and this I say without hesitation, if today we are discussing a federation between Tanzania and Mozambique, most of Tanzanians will be less apprehensive. These are people who you go and still appreciate the role which was played. So, we need to see in this dialogue how COMESA and SADC is going to be part of also of our dialogue, without inhibiting what we are doing, but without seeing it as an impediment. And this is where I agree with my good brother Shaka. Last but not least is what has been said by Shaka and the lady. Social integration, what I call as soft instruments of integration. One of the things which I was told by Clive Thomas, which has meant Caribbean people to be the same, is cricket. Cricket has done a big role, but also, unlike us, they never disbanded the University of West Indies. So all Caribbeans get their degrees from the University of West Indies. as much as it is from Cape Hill or from Mona or from St. Augustine campus in Trinidad and Tobago. We need to invest that. And this is why it's time we start thinking either of a scholarship fund or of an endowment where our highly endowed kids will do their postgraduate studies at the level of masters and the PhDs financed by East Africans. At the moment, and since Monday I ceased to be the Dean of Faculty of Law because my training ended, we have every year 15 scholarships paid by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of Germany. 10 for LLM, 5 for PhDs. And this is why we have students from Burundi, students from Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya. They came for evaluation this year. And their question was, how much are you putting in to this what we have given us? And they said, I wish Beatrice was staying longer because she's the one I would go and say, Beatrice, now let us show that we can also put some money in this. I'm not campaigning for my dean now, but we need to see how also we can put more money to that, because the Germans are giving us money for 5 years to train 10 and 5, and one of those is our Deputy Foreign Minister of Tanzania. He's doing his PhD. It's not for academics, it's for public servants and civil society. So we need to see how, as Uledi was saying, and the others are saying, we can also invest in this, what I call soft instruments of integration. And they're working. Always when I'm in Nairobi, I meet Uledi Musa's cousin. Is a woman's cousin or nephew? Cousin. She is Uganda's High Commissioner to Kenya, coming from the same village with Uledi Musa. And at Arusha, I was surprised wherever we have a break, they would reach at Kamwene. And this one is supposed to be coming from Uganda and Tanzania. So that is my last plea, that we need really to invest much also on the soft instruments of integration. Integration, as I said, is inevitable. We will differ on how we achieve it, but not to achieve it. For those I have offended, I apologize again. I live in the light of Christ. So Kitui, don't feel offended.